6:45 now. Thanks to state lawmakers, Texas homeowners have more protections from overzealous homeowners associations.
Consumer expert Amy Davis is here to tell us about the bills signed into law and when they take effect. Amy?
The road has always meant freedom, but that freedom is disappearing. Overnight bans, higher fees, campgrounds rejecting full-time RVers, even public lands are closing off access. Is this the end of RV life as we know it? Before it's too late, here's what you need to know. Let's get rolling. RV living has long symbolized freedom on the open road, but recent years have seen a wave of restrictions threatening this way of life. Cities and states across the country are implementing strict laws that limit where RVs can park, stay overnight, or serve as primary residences. The surge in urban RV living, driven by rising housing costs, has prompted this regulatory response. As more people turn to RVs, vans, and converted buses as affordable housing alternatives, local governments have responded with measures to discourage vehicle dwelling. These restrictions particularly impact low-income residents who depend on their RVs for housing rather than recreation. Local pressure has fueled these changes. Homeowners associations and businesses, citing concerns about property values, sanitation, and safety, have lobbied for stricter regulations. The resulting ordinances often include parking prohibitions, occupancy time limits, and substantial fines for violations. Even traditional havens for RV enthusiasts are becoming less welcoming. Public lands, including national forests and Bureau of Land Management areas, have introduced shorter stay limits and higher fees, while some locations have banned camping entirely. These changes affect not just urban areas, but the entire RV community. Critics argue these regulations go beyond addressing legitimate concerns and effectively criminalize nomadic living. With fewer legal parking options and mounting restrictions, many RVers face difficult choices: adapt to increasingly limited options, pay more for approved RV park, or give up their mobile lifestyle altogether. This shifting landscape raises questions about affordable housing, personal freedom, and the future of alternative living arrangements in America. Cities across the U.S. are rapidly implementing laws that make it increasingly difficult for RV owners to find legal parking spots. These regulations, ranging from overnight parking bans to restrictive zoning laws, are creating significant challenges for both full-time travelers and temporary RV users. The surge in full-time RV living has largely driven these changes. As housing costs rise, more people are turning to RVs, vans, and converted buses as permanent homes. City governments, viewing this trend as problematic, have responded with regulations that often prohibit long-term vehicle dwelling, even on private property. Local businesses and homeowners associations have fueled these restrictions. Their complaints about sanitation and safety have led to widespread bans on overnight parking in previously RV-friendly locations. Popular spots like Walmart and Cracker Barrel parking lots, once reliable havens for travelers, are increasingly off-limits. Cities have also intensified enforcement, implementing aggressive towing policies and imposing substantial fines on vehicles that overstay their welcome. The situation is complicated further by changes at dedicated RV parks. Many now enforce strict age limits on vehicles or require hard-to-obtain long-term permits. These combined pressures leave full-time RVers with dwindling options. They must either constantly relocate, risk penalties, pay premium rates at private campgrounds, or give up their mobile lifestyle entirely. This shifting landscape raises important questions about affordable housing alternatives and the future of nomadic living in America. RV parks and campgrounds nationwide are implementing stricter policies that significantly impact full-time travelers. Rising fees, tighter stay restrictions, and new rules are transforming what was once an affordable lifestyle choice into an increasingly expensive and complex endeavor. Campground costs have surged dramatically. Monthly stays that previously ranged from $300 to $500 now often exceed $1,000, driven by increased demand, inflation, and corporate ownership changes. This price jump has made sustained RV living financially unfeasible for many travelers who relied on extended stays to manage costs. Stay limits have also become more restrictive. Public lands, including BLM areas and national forests, have shortened their maximum stay periods, in some cases from 14 to 30 days down to just 7 days or less. This forces frequent relocation, adding substantial fuel costs and logistical complications to the full-time travel lifestyle. Private RV parks are introducing selective admission policies, with many now enforcing 10-year age restrictions on RVs. These rules exclude older but well-maintained rigs, particularly affecting budget-conscious travelers and those depending on older models as affordable housing alternatives. Even membership-based networks like Thousand Trails and KOA have tightened their reservation systems and long-term stay access. These combined changes are forcing many RVers to reevaluate their lifestyle choices. The mounting costs, increasingly strict regulations, and dwindling availability of long-term spots are making full-time RV living more challenging than ever to sustain.
City officials in Rohnert Park taking action after 4 people died on the SMART train tracks in the last month. People living in their vehicles at this parking lot in Rohnert Park are bearing the brunt of this new plan. KPX5's John Ramos says the people living there feel they're being scapegoated.
The era of convenient overnight RV parking at businesses like Walmart, Cracker Barrel, and Cabela's is rapidly fading. These once reliable stops for travelers are increasingly posting no overnight parking signs, dramatically altering the landscape of RV travel. Local ordinances are driving much of this change. Cities are passing strict laws against overnight commercial lot parking, often responding to pressure from residents and businesses concerned about property values and congestion. Even when business owners are willing to accommodate RVers, many find themselves forced to prohibit overnight stays to comply with local regulations. Misuse of parking privileges has accelerated this trend. While most RVers follow established courtesies, staying just one night and maintaining a low profile, some have abused these arrangements. Incidents of extended stays, outdoor camping setups, and improper waste disposal have prompted businesses to revoke overnight parking privileges entirely. The situation is further complicated by urban homeless concerns. Cities increasingly view any overnight vehicle parking as part of broader housing challenges, leading to blanket prohibitions that affect all vehicle dwellers, including responsible travelers. These changes leave RVers with fewer options. They must rely on rest stops, truck stops, paid campgrounds, or risk stealth parking. As more locations prohibit overnight stays, RV travel is becoming both more expensive and more challenging to navigate. This shift represents a significant change for the RV community, particularly affecting those who depend on these free overnight stops to make full-time travel affordable.
New at 6, Governor Gavin Newsom urging cities and counties across the state to clear homeless encampments. News Channel 3's Jennifer Franco explains how current efforts by our local governments fall in line with Newsom's recent executive order.
Local governments are increasingly categorizing full-time RVers as homeless, creating significant challenges for those who choose mobile living for freedom or financial independence. This classification is driving stricter regulations and enforcement actions that make it increasingly difficult for RVers to legally exist in urban areas. Cities are using this designation to justify aggressive anti-RV measures, claiming vehicle dwellers contribute to local homelessness issues. New policies include vehicle dwelling bans, strict parking time limits, and targeted enforcement sweeps. Some municipalities now require RV owners to prove they maintain permanent housing elsewhere to register their vehicles, directly challenging the feasibility of full-time travel. The homeless designation creates barriers beyond parking restrictions. Essential services often become harder to access, as banks, insurance providers, and government agencies typically require a fixed address. RVers without permanent residences frequently face higher insurance rates, campsite rental denials, and difficulties accessing mail services and benefits. Public land access is also shrinking, with new stay limits on BLM and national forest lands reducing free camping options. As traditional campgrounds raise prices and impose stricter requirements, long-term RVers find themselves with fewer affordable alternatives. This systematic push against full-time RV living is forcing nomads to navigate an increasingly hostile regulatory environment. What began as targeted homeless policies has evolved into broader restrictions that threaten to make the RV lifestyle unsustainable for many who chose it as a legitimate alternative to traditional housing. Across the U.S., new laws and zoning restrictions are challenging property owners' rights to live in RVs on their own land. What was once a personal property decision is now heavily regulated, with homeowners facing fines, eviction notices, and legal challenges simply for living in or parking their RVs on their own property. Local zoning laws are at the heart of these restrictions, with many jurisdictions classifying RVs as temporary dwellings, unsuitable for permanent residents. Some counties mandate connection to utilities like water, sewer, and electricity, effectively prohibiting off-grid RV living. In areas governed by HOAs or strict suburban zoning codes, even brief RV stays on private property can trigger legal consequences. City governments and real estate developers are driving much of this change. As property values climb, lawmakers are implementing tighter restrictions to discourage low-cost RV living in favor of traditional housing. Some states have expanded these limitations to include other alternative housing options, like tiny homes and van dwelling, citing building code violations and health concerns. Enforcement has intensified, with code compliance officers actively issuing fines and forcing property owners to remove their RVs. Even rural areas are introducing new permit requirements and time limits for RV stays, significantly restricting landowners' property use rights. These regulations are creating a paradox. By limiting private property options for stable RV living, they're forcing more people into constant movement on public roads. This growing conflict between property rights and local regulations is emerging as a critical challenge for the future of alternative housing choices. Police enforcement against stealth camping is intensifying nationwide, creating significant challenges for RVers and van dwellers who depend on urban overnight parking. Cities are actively enforcing anti-vehicle dwelling laws, eliminating previously tolerated parking spots and forcing nomads into constant relocation. Overnight sweeps have become a primary enforcement tool, with law enforcement clearing vehicles from public areas. Officers frequently issue citations, mandate immediate relocation, or tow vehicles. Cities increasingly classify sleeping in vehicles as illegal camping, with fines ranging from $100 to $500 per incident. Multiple violations can lead to vehicle impoundment, leaving travelers stranded unless they can pay substantial recovery fees. New ordinances have introduced strict parking time limits, making it illegal to remain in one location for more than a few hours. While some areas offer overnight parking permits, these are often costly or restricted to local residents. Traditional safe havens like truck stops, rest areas, and retail parking lots are increasingly posting no overnight parking signs in response to local pressure and heightened enforcement. The crackdown is particularly intense in tourist areas and affluent neighborhoods, making urban stealth camping increasingly risky. Even remote options are diminishing, as public lands face increased patrols, shorter stay limits, and stricter fine structures. These changes are transforming full-time RV living into a more expensive and precarious lifestyle, affecting thousands of nomadic travelers who rely on finding safe, legal overnight parking. States are implementing stricter vehicle registration and insurance requirements that directly impact full-time RVers, creating significant barriers to maintaining their mobile lifestyle. These changes pose serious challenges to nomads who depend on their vehicles as both transportation and housing. State residency laws are becoming a major hurdle. While many RVers have traditionally registered their vehicles in RV-friendly states like South Dakota, Texas, and Florida, new regulations are making this more difficult. States are increasingly requiring proof of physical residence rather than accepting mail services or P.O. boxes. This shift affects everything from driver's license renewals to vehicle registration, potentially leaving some RVers unable to maintain legal documentation. Insurance companies are also creating obstacles for full-time travelers. Many providers now either refuse coverage to those without permanent addresses or charge significantly higher premiums for full-timer policies. Some insurers require fixed storage addresses or limit coverage for RVs used as primary residences, forcing nomads to seek specialized and often more expensive insurance options. Vehicle requirements are tightening as well, with states introducing stricter inspection and emissions standards. Some regions, like California, are considering regulations that could phase out certain diesel RVs, potentially forcing older vehicles off the road entirely. These combined challenges are creating a complex legal and financial landscape for full-time RVers. Without access to proper registration and insurance, many face difficult choices about the sustainability of their chosen lifestyle. RV parks and campgrounds are increasingly implementing strict age and size restrictions, creating new challenges for travelers. Many facilities now reject RVs older than 10 to 15 years and enforce maximum length limits, forcing some RVers to reconsider their travel plans or contemplate costly vehicle upgrades. These policies often stem from aesthetic and liability concerns. Private campgrounds, aiming to maintain a resort-like atmosphere, view older RVs as potentially damaging to their image. Rather than evaluating individual vehicle conditions, many parks implement blanket bans on all older rigs, citing concerns about mechanical failures, leaks, and electrical issues as justification. Length restrictions are becoming equally problematic, particularly at older campgrounds not designed for modern RVs. Some facilities limit vehicles to 30 to 35 feet, creating significant challenges for owners of larger Class A motorhomes and fifth wheels. Popular destinations often prefer accommodating smaller RVs and vans, maximizing space and booking potential. Even state and national parks are tightening their restrictions, with many older sites unable to accommodate today's larger rigs. This trend leaves owners of older or oversized RVs with dwindling options for overnight stays. The industry's shift toward newer, smaller vehicles is fundamentally changing the RV camping landscape, potentially forcing long-time travelers to either upgrade their rigs or seek alternative solutions. Despite mounting challenges from new parking restrictions, stricter campground rules, rising costs, and government regulations, the RV lifestyle isn't disappearing, it's evolving. While cities ban overnight parking, restrict private land camping, and tighten public land limits, nomads are finding innovative ways to adapt and continue their mobile lifestyle. Off-grid solutions are leading this transformation. Full-time travelers increasingly invest in solar power, composting toilets, and boondocking-friendly setups to reduce dependence on traditional RV parks. Some are purchasing rural land in RV-friendly states with fewer restrictions, while others join membership-based camping networks that provide consistent, affordable stays. Technology plays a crucial role in navigating these changes. Apps like Campendium, iOverlander, and Free Roam help travelers discover hidden boondocking locations and monitor changing regulations. Online nomadic communities have emerged, sharing vital information about legal alternatives and adaptive strategies. Success in this changing landscape requires staying informed and flexible. While insurance and registration requirements become more complex and regulations continue to evolve, so do the solutions RVers develop. By understanding local laws, choosing strategic residency states, and investing in appropriate equipment, full-time travelers can maintain their chosen lifestyle. The future of RV living depends on adaptation. Those who embrace change, stay informed about legal requirements, and adopt innovative solutions will continue to thrive in this evolving environment. The rules are changing fast, but RVers are finding ways to stay on the road. How are you dealing with these new laws? Drop a comment below and let's talk. And if you think these new laws are bad, click here to watch our next video on even bigger changes that could impact every RVer. Stay ahead, stay free, keep rolling.